Happy Sunday evening to you. Thanks for stopping by Dixie Living Homestead. I'm just taking a few minutes this evening to finish planning for the week, make sure I have everything ready for homeschooling and all our meal planning done so I can go this week and not have to worry what's next. Especially I don't like to hear that question they always ask, Mom, what's for dinner? So as I'm finishing up with that, I wanted to respond back to a challenge that I had been tagged in by Smith Family Ranch as to why do I garden. I think it originally started, why do I homestead? Why do I garden? Why do we grow our food? Why do we do any of this? So I did take a couple minutes to write down a few notes, and I wanted to answer that back. When we first started back in 2007, just homeschooling our kids, and I began to get more into more natural ways of living, eating healthier and trying to take care of our bodies, I didn't even realize that there was a movement called homesteading. It was just what most of my family had always done. They lived on acreage or farms in Ohio, and we were blessed to be able to go and visit them in the summer, and that's just what they did. So I didn't know that it was termed anything special. I just thought that's how all country folk lived, and I sure wanted to make that special way of living something that my kids could benefit from. So as we began homeschooling, and in a lot of our studies we were given a mandate by God at creation to be good stewards of the earth. I considered that maybe our high consumerism way of living wasn't living up to that, so I started looking for ways to save money, to take better care of our bodies. That's being a good steward of our bodies, and make things like that last longer. So that's how I first got into gardening again as a young married woman with just a few kids, and from there it just kind of grew. I never stopped canning. Every summer my dad he would come by with cases of tomatoes that they had picked up while they were on vacation. He would stop by on the house on the way back home and say, okay, let's get these canned, and we would just put up jars and jars of tomatoes. So I had never stopped. I always had a love for cooking, and so I always was I guess what you would call a scratch cook. I don't have to follow a recipe and go by exact ingredients. That just wasn't the way I had observed my Mamaw cook. She just would look in the fridge, grab a little bit of this, and if you know what you like and you put it together often enough, then it's going to turn out fine. So the main reason that I started actively, though, pursuing this kind of life was because of the mandate that had been given to me, and that I was teaching my kids on a daily basis. I sure didn't want them to question me, well, why don't we do this? So that was the first reason. So the second reason is really because I love to eat, and I love to eat good food. So if you've gone into the grocery store, and we won't even start on how it's not really good, but if you go into the grocery store and you want to buy, all the tomatoes that you could possibly eat, because I love tomatoes, tomato sandwich, tomato pie, tomato soup, tomatoes and cottage cheese. I mean, when they're coming in the summer, I can eat 20 at least in a week. So I wanted to be able to eat as much of my favorite foods that I wanted to, and that's really not necessarily affordable when you're paying for them by the pound, especially if you're paying for locally grown and organic. So that's one reason I decided to grow it myself, especially asparagus when it comes in the spring. Once in a while there's a deal one week, but most of the weeks it's really expensive. So I know that's selfish, but that's one of the main reasons I grow it myself, is just to make it affordable so that I can enjoy more of it myself and for my family. Another reason that I enjoy the homesteading lifestyle, planting gardens, working with animals, hatching new babies, is that I love to work together with not just my kids, but my husband as well on a project. I like for my kids to see us plan a project and then see it through to completion. I like the personality conflicts that often come out in families while we're doing it, but then I like the enjoyment when the job or the project is completed, or we're picking from the garden, or the new chicks are hatching, whatever it is. I love the joy and the teamwork and the camaraderie that we're able to share as a family that I probably wouldn't be able to enjoy if I missed out on that every day by going to work at a regular job. The other reason is because I am very, very nostalgic. This takes me back to my childhood. Growing up, my parents divorced when I was young, so every summer, either while we lived in California or while we lived in Florida, my dad's side of the family, who all lived in Ohio, they would fly us to them, and we would get to stay with them for the summer, so my dad could continue to work and he wouldn't have to have childcare for us during the summer. And we would go back there and live basically for 2 or 3 months at a time over the summer. In one particular instance, I had a specific aunt that I lived with, and we would put out a huge, at least half-acre garden. She did all of it, green beans, squash, everything. I looked forward to that. I looked forward to their pond that they had on their property, where, yes, we would fish and often have to throw it back in. They had huge trees that we would get up and go at 10 or 11 o'clock at night and go dig up night crawlers so that we could fish with them the next day. And then also, we would also catch just big, giant bullfrogs and, yes, cook and eat the frog legs. And so because I have those wonderful and warm memories of canning in her huge basement that she had set up just for preserving everything that she had harvested, it didn't mess up her kitchen upstairs. There was a lot of big workspace for us to prepare the vegetables and can them and just keep going on throughout the day, and it wasn't interrupting the regular flow of life. So all those memories are built into me, and they just warm my heart every time that I stuff a jar full of something. It reminds me, oh, I remember the last time I got to do that with Aunt Rita. And it takes me back, and because I am so nostalgic, it gives me a good feeling, and I want to pass that on, of course, not just to my children, but I hope to my grandchildren one day. I hope to share those wonderful memories with them. And then another reason that I do what I do is because it makes healthy eating and healthy living affordable. My husband has always been a great provider for us, but truly, if you were going to purchase everything, raw milk, raw cheeses, grass-fed local beef, pasture-raised chicken, pasture-raised pork, your organic grains for you to mill your bread yourself, if you are purchasing that at this time, because of the way our agricultural system is set up and our groceries, that is not affordable for the average family. And so one way to help take a big chunk out of our grocery budget was for us to grow and raise as much of our own food as possible. So that's another reason that we chose to do this. And also, it's kind of a game. I figure that my husband works very hard for us, so why wouldn't I want to find ways to help our budget out here and there? So the last reason that I'm going to share with you for homesteading, because I'm sure this is getting long, is that it teaches my children to be producers rather than just consumers. So it's not just about, where does chicken come from? The grocery store. No. It teaches them how to responsibly raise something, how difficult it might be to raise something like an animal and then harvest it. So it teaches them to consume their meats more responsibly. It teaches them to have an appreciation for every life and that every life is precious. And it also allows us, when we do have an abundance, to be able to share and give to others. And they really, really enjoy that. Whether they personally make a baked good and take it to someone at church who just had a baby or who is sick or just lost a loved one, or if it's actually some of their own chicks that have hatched out and they can sell them and see a profit from it too. It teaches them that side of producing and consumerism as well. So those are just a few reasons that I wanted to share with you and answer back the challenge of why we homestead and why we garden. I'm going to go ahead and list a couple of channels then that I want to challenge and find out from them why do they homestead and why did they get into gardening and this way of life. I first want to challenge K&A's Family Homestead, and I hope they'll let us know real soon. I also want to ask Bumblebee Junction if they'll let us know why it is they've chosen to garden and live the way they do. And the last one that I wanted to ask was Tim and Amy's Homestead, if they would answer back and put up a quick video of why they garden as well. In case one of them aren't able to answer, I also wanted to give a shout out to Boston Mountain Homestead and give them a little challenge to answer why it is they've chosen to live this way as well. So thanks for getting together with me on this quiet Sunday evening. I'm so glad everyone's finally in bed and I have just a few minutes to collect my thoughts before another crazy week begins for us, and I'm sure for you as well. So until next time, I hope to see you back here at Dixie Living Homestead. Have a good night.